Today I want to announce a tour that we're doing here at Fulu Foundation. We're going to be visiting a bunch of cities all over the United States to try and get people galvanized and excited, bring people together that care about ownership, to push back against anti-ownership laws that exist in the United States. We are doing everything that we can to reform, repeal, push back against these laws wherever we can, but we can't do that by ourselves. We need the help of everybody else. On this channel, for the past 14 years, you have never seen me, not once, say, by the way, check out Tunnel Bear, check out Raycons. Hey, this hotel gave me a free room, so I'm going to pretend that they're actually a good hotel and try and get my audience to pay for overpriced shit. I never say ring that bell, like and subscribe. You never hear that from me. But the one thing that I will ask you to do is consider showing up for this. And if you're not able to show up, at the very least, when we release a call to action in your particular area, in your particular congressional district, that you answer the call and you do the things that we ask you to do to push back against these in an organized way. I'm showing up in California next week. I'm going to be flying out on Monday. I'm going to be showing up on Tuesday morning in California, in Sacramento, in the Senate building. I hope as many people show up as possible who care about 3D printing not being destroyed by a law that requires that the 3D printer connect to a fucking government database to try and figure out if it thinks that you're printing a gun, which, again, as I went over, if you have a cold shoe mount to a camera, if you have a case to a Raspberry Pi, if you have a flashlight, this is so many places for this to go wrong. I'm showing up there to record all the heroes that have decided to take time out of their day to explain why this is a horrible bill and try to get as many people to show up as possible to push back against it. And we're also going to be doing that with Section 1201 of the DMCA and many other anti-ownership laws. One of the things I learned while watching the push for that bill is that while the group that is doing it has a lot of money, it's a very small number of people that are actually getting a fuck ton done. Because while our side, the pro-ownership side, the pro-repair side, the pro-freedom side, is often very black-pilled, nihilistic, and believes, they're never going to listen to us. What's the point? The anti-freedom side, the anti-ownership side, the anti-consumer rights side, they are very fucking motivated all the time. I don't want my legacy in life to be that I increase the sales of ExpressVPN or Audible, or that there are more fucking AI battery banks that have sold. I want it to be that I'm passing on a world that I'm proud of to my future children. I'm going to be repeating this all across the country. I will let you know in the YouTube community post as well as in YouTube videos when you can expect to see these. And I hope to see you there.
That was a lot. How's everybody doing? Yeah, a little more than that. Come on. How's everybody doing? Yeah, there we go. That's what I like to hear. Hi, everybody. My name's Kevin O'Reilly. I'm the executive director with Fulu Foundation. And first of all, I want to thank all of you for taking some time out of your holiday weekend to be here with us today. The reason that we're here is because something about our relationship with our technology has changed, right? We have all lived through a time of incredible technological innovation and progress. And I'd argue that many of us in this room have been some of the eager adopters and maybe even advocates for that tech. But what's become clear is that the companies that make that tech are no longer showing us the same respect, right? It used to be that when you bought something, you owned it, and that ownership came with control. So that meant that, the maker of your television or your tractor or your pickup truck had no ability and no right to tell you how to use it, when or where to get it fixed, which features you had access to, right? It was your thing. When you bought a video game, you got the disc, you could play it for as long as you wanted. That's shifted, and this conception of ownership right now is under attack. So these days, if you want to get your Kawasaki's oil changed, you've got to go to the dealership, right? If you want to use your BMW's heated seats, you got to fork over a monthly subscription. And if you just don't want your TV to spy on you and then sell that data to advertisers, you've got to navigate through 5 to 10 screens of legalese and hope that the manufacturer honors your request. That's ridiculous. It's not right? As owners, we deserve the right to call the shots. We deserve the ability to make our technology work for us. We deserve the right to repair, and for goodness sake, we deserve to own our shit. Yeah. So today you're going to be hearing from a few folks that are leading the push for ownership, for control, for privacy. You're going to be hearing a lot about the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, or the DMCA. Ooh, that's the right answer. That's the right response. Right, this law that has made true ownership into a federal crime with penalties of up to 5 years in prison and $500,000 in fines. And then after that, each one of you is going to take action. You're going to be writing a postcard to your member of Congress, because the only way that we're going to be able to change this is if we all come together and demand that kind of change. So thank you again for being here. Now the person you've all come here to see, Louis Rossman, president of Fulu, YouTube activist, many, many things. Louis, take it away. How about a round of applause for Louis, huh?
All right. Beautiful. It works. All right, so today I thought we'd start out with the primary problem, which is what we've been talking about, ownership. So I thought we'd start by defining the problem. Let's define what purchase used to mean in the 14th century. In the 14th century, purchase meant to acquire in exchange for payment in money or an equivalent. The action or act of obtaining something in exchange for payment for money or an equivalent. Buying. That was the 14th century definition. Let's read the 21st century definition from Sony. Sony. Due to updated licensing arrangements, as of December 31st, 2023, due to our content licensing arrangements with content providers, you will no longer be able to watch any of your previously purchased Discovery content, and the content will be removed from your video library. We sincerely thank you for your continued support. They didn't say stream. They didn't say rent. They said purchase. And then they just took it away. Because that is what is normal now. Another word that I think is really important is lifetime. I much prefer the 14th century definition. The 14th century definition from Oxford English Dictionary is the duration of a person's or animal's life, the period of time over which a person's life extends. Person's life. Let's see what it means in the 21st century. Anybody here have to buy textbooks for college? Anybody here try to buy a used textbook, but the teacher tells you the questions are different from last year's, even though calculus hasn't changed in 70 years? Yeah. So let's take a look at what VitalSource says. Now you have 3 different licenses. You have the $62 for 180 days, $86 for a year, or $110 for a lifetime. Now let's see, what do you think lifetime means to VitalSource? Any guesses? Products labeled as lifetime typically mean 5 years, typically, not even 5, they're not committing, of online access and permanent downloads to a supported device, which means if they do not make that app for this version of Android anymore, sucks for you. This is not a PDF file or a document file that you download. This is a book that you paid $200 or $400 for a lifetime license that you now have access to for, again, up to 5 years, which means could be 2 weeks. Books. Speaking of books, Amazon used to allow you to purchase books and then download them. And many of these books were advertised as not having digital rights management. Starting February 26, 2025, the download and transfer via USB option will no longer be available. And there are books on Amazon right now that are being sold without digital rights management, yet when you buy it, you cannot download it, even though the actual advertising on Amazon's site said you were allowed to download the book. Now, my personal favorite was the $400 baby monitor. How many people here have bought a baby monitor for their family or their kids or seen one? Okay, not a lot of people with kids here. But the usual price for this thing is usually $30 to $50, maybe $80 after the Iran war. This is $400 for a baby monitor. Now, what do you think the company did when they started having financial issues? Do you think they started trying to make a better product? Did they try to figure out new ways to attract consumers? Fuck no. What they did is they sent out a firmware update that turned it into a subscription. Live breathing and sleep tracking are available with a Miku membership. My $400 baby monitor has locked previously features behind a subscription paywall. One of my personal favorites is that they do this with wheelchairs. Somebody had a wheelchair that used to be able to go 8 kilometers an hour, and now it's only able to go 5 to 6 kilometers an hour unless they pay to unlock these new features. Because being able to catch the bus is apparently worth a subscription. So they actually did this to somebody with multiple sclerosis. Lovely. Now, this hit a crescendo for me when there's a company called Future Home that makes these smart home products like thermostats, things for your water heater, everything else. They were having financial issues, and instead of trying to make a better product, they sent out a firmware update to all these devices so that if you wanted to be able to use it the way you could before, you had to pay them $117 a year to use the thermostat that you already paid for. And this is the point where this just kind of reached a crescendo for me, and I realized something has to change. So when I started this channel, I did a lot of videos of fixing motherboards and fixing things at component level. And at some point, I got a phone call from a lawyer from Kilpatrick and Townsend. It was a very, very kind and polite person from Apple calling out, asking if I could just take down this one troublesome video that I had of. And I'm like, why? They're like, well, we really like your content. It's just that one piece you used, this little piece of copyrighted or trade secret work, which was a schematic that showed how the motherboard was put together. So if I'm going to fix a motherboard, I need to know how the motherboard is put together. And on the bottom corner of the motherboard, it usually says something like this that lets me know what they were mad at. Notice of proprietary property. Do not copy or reproduce it. Don't reveal or publish it in whole or in part. And there were a few million people on YouTube watching me fix things. So I spoke to a lawyer, and the lawyer told me, wow, you have no case. Like, look at what you're putting on the screen over here. You have absolutely no case. You are clearly breaking the law. What are you doing? But I'm looking at my comments, and there's hundreds of thousands of people saying, thank you. Apple wanted $700 to fix this. I just fixed it myself for $15. Thank you. I started a business doing this. I no longer work at Walmart and make minimum wage. This is great. And I thought to myself, if I'm actually helping enough people, if I'm doing the right thing for the right reasons, then the fact that I'm breaking the law is not the issue. It's the law that's the issue, not me. So I paid my lawyer, and I told him politely, I tell him I'm not taking the video down. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, tell them if they want the video taken down, they can file a claim. And the thing is, when you file a DMCA claim to have a video taken down, you have to say why. You have to say the timestamp, but you also have to say the section that was offending and why. And I wanted Apple to have to put in writing, a company that has a department and a director of sustainability and environmental justice. I wanted them to say that at 55 seconds to 1 minute, Louis Rossmann shows where the fuse is, and we don't want our customers knowing where it is. Put that shit on paper. Now, there's this idea that I have where I try to frame my life where if I win, I win, and if I lose, I win. If I win, they leave me alone. I get to keep making videos for the next 5 or 10 years and promoting right to repair. If I lose and they file a claim, now again, this trillion-dollar company with the director of sustainability and environmental justice is now going to have to explain to the world that they really don't like you knowing where a fuse is in your product. And I decided to take that principle to the issue of ownership. So let's see what we did with the future home thermostat. With this, I knew somebody who worked at the company, and I knew a few people who knew how this stuff worked, knew how to release a workaround to it. They just needed a little push. So we put out a bounty program of $5,000, and I said, if somebody unbricks this thermostat, if you return it to the functionality that it had before, we will give you $5,000. And that little push worked because very shortly thereafter, the CEO of Future Home said, this is illegal hacking. So let me get this straight. When you push out a firmware update to a product because you went bankrupt saying, we want $117 a year from all of you, just holding you hostage, holding you ransom, that's a business model. But when I say I'm going to give you back access to the product that you already bought and paid for, that is illegal hacking. Now, somebody wound up coming up with a solution, a very nice open source solution to this, and they won the bounty, and it was a great solution. A lot of people are now using their thermostat without paying that corrupt asshole $117 a year. Now, the thing is, what he said is not true. That is not considered illegal hacking in the country of Norway. It's not. However, it is considered illegal hacking in the country of America, because in the US, we have a law called Section 1201 of the DMCA, which says if you bypass a technical protection measure to get access to a work that the company doesn't want you to have access to, even if it's for the purpose of repair, even if it's for you to make the device that you already bought and own work again after the manufacturer's bricked it, doesn't matter. You're technically allowed to fix it for yourself, but you can't show other people how to do it. So this is kind of like saying you're allowed to work on your own cancer, you just can't treat other people. How many people here know how to reprogram the firmware in their thermostat after the manufacturer bricks it? Some, maybe 1 or 2, but most people don't know how to do that. You're not going to become an expert in that. So by saying that you can't share the solution with others and making it illegal, you've effectively said, technically you can fix it, but who's going to do that if you can't share it? So we started to get known as the group that was paying bounties for unlocking these devices and offering to unlock these devices for people who have been screwed by this. One of the examples afterwards was the Nest thermostat. The Nest thermostat had, anybody here have a Nest in their house? Yeah, so for the older ones, they said this is just not going to work anymore. What I found offensive about this is that there is no expiration date on the box. Like, you probably say, here's how long my eggs are good for on your carton. But there are no, okay, bad example. Bad example, small farm. A lot of stuff at your grocery store says when it expires, but this does not, but none of these products said when they expire. And it had an expiration date. So we put up another bounty. Again, this one was for $14,772. Now the thing is, as a large follower YouTuber, I would never tell people to break the law. I can't do that. But I also can't tell people whether or not they're going to release the solution afterwards. I'm not your mom. I'm not your dad. I'm a YouTuber. So and the way I see this is, if we win and somebody releases a solution, hundreds of thousands of people get back access to what they bought and paid for. And if they decide, you know what, I'm not going to release the solution after I win the bounty, we also win. The reason for that is because now we can point to the fact that this law exists. I would be able to show millions of people how to make their thermostat work again instead of having to throw it away, but I can't because this is here. And that's the purpose of what we were doing with this bounty program. And I'm going to talk about some of those laws and some of the excuses that people make for them shortly. So somebody came out with a solution, the Nest thermostat jailbreak. This is on the No Longer Evil website, making a nice poking jab at Google getting rid of the Don't Be Evil slogan around 2008 or 2009. There's a couple of other examples of this. There's a company called Echelon. They make these exercise bikes. It's kind of like cheap version of Peloton. And they sent out a firmware update that stopped it from being able to work with third-party apps. Would surprise anybody here that at the time that they sent out a firmware update that stopped you from using other people's apps, their apps were trying to sell you on subscriptions. Would that surprise anybody here? Yeah, anyway, somebody came out with a way to use it with third-party applications again, the same way that you could when you bought the bike. But he decided not to release it after winning the bounty because he did not feel like dealing with a 30-year-old law that could subject him to 3 to 5 years in federal prison. And again, I don't blame him. I don't blame him. Now, the reason that this is important, and the reason that we win, even if this man does not release it, is because it allows us to push back against the opposition's most common talking point, that this is a solution in search of a problem that does not exist. When I go around the country and I talk about this issue, I'll often meet people that say this. Let's see. Here we go.
My name is Samantha Kerschel, and I'm the Executive Director for TechNet. Respectfully, we are testifying in opposition to Senate Bill 5799 today. We believe this legislation is in search of a problem that does not exist.
Something that's resonated with me is something that you heard early on here, is this is legislation in search of a problem.
Now, I got in trouble after releasing this because it had her name in the title, and apparently she said she's getting all these types of messages online. So, and I figured it out. Right before this hearing that we went to, she had tweeted, and I quote, "I'm experiencing phone issues. The phone is on, but the screen is black. I've tried everything. It's time for," and when you click this, it's like 5 or 7 years ago, so I don't have the link anymore, but it said something along the lines of, "me to figure out how to fix my phone." Life comes at you fast. I guess with the salary that she's getting to lobby against consumer rights for Samsung and Apple, she could probably just afford to buy a new one. But they will often say that what we're talking about is not really a problem. None of this stuff is a problem. We're just kind of making it up. And one of the things that we're trying to do here is demonstrate every single way that this particular law is a problem, that this does exist. Now, I'm very biased in favor of right to repair, so I don't want you to listen to what I have to think about these laws. I'd rather you listen to the person who actually wrote it about 35 years ago. This is Bruce Lehman. He is the architect of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, and I want you to hear what he has to say about this law.
Unfortunately, at least in some areas, our policies haven't worked out too well. Our attempts at copyright control, at least thus far, have not been successful. But I don't just blame teenagers and college students. I really blame the moguls in the music industry, because had they been thinking about these business models when we were doing our work in 1994 in the Clinton administration, had they been developing effective online distribution models when the internet first came into business, had they been talking to Steve Case when AOL first started to become a big deal, and really seriously developing an online business model, perhaps we would not be in the situation that we are. But the culture of that industry was such that, those people were concerned principally with and their talents were developing talent, understanding public taste. They didn't know anything about distribution or technology or anything like that. Minions dealt with that. Well, their industry has paid the price. Hopefully there's not any, I won't be quoted in the U.S., but I'm afraid our Clinton administration policies didn't work out very well. Now, a lot of people accused me at the time of doing an end run around Congress and everybody else by negotiating these treaties and then coming back and saying, well, because we submitted this to Congress before the treaties process was completed, then coming back and saying, well, now you have to do this, Congress, because we've agreed to a treaty. And I would say that they're probably right, that it was an end run and it was partly deliberate. And the final statute that comes out, the guy who was the head of then the biggest record company in the world, Warner Records, and he was a very nice guy, and he wrote a book a few years later after he retired and confirmed what I always thought to be the case about record industry executives. Record industry executives are impresarios. And the most successful record industry executives I would characterize as a 45-year-old man who can think like a 17-year-old girl and likes to hang out at 3 o'clock in the morning and do drugs with rock stars. And he basically admitted to all of that in his book that he wrote several years later. Unfortunately, that is not a mindset, a part of the brain that does very well at evolving new business models for highly complex technologies.
So let's get this straight. He admits that it is a horrible law that didn't do what it was supposed to. Check. He admits and laughs about the fact that he snuck this into a treaty to trick Congress into passing it. And he admits that the entire business model was based on junkies that should not have the ability to legislate technology. And yet 29 years later, this law is still the reason that a man is afraid that if he shows you how to make your exercise bike work again, that he will go to federal prison. Only in America. What we're doing here is we are trying to fix this law, and we are trying to also reform it and similar laws like it, because this law came out at a time when your refrigerator, your car, your exercise bike, your baby monitor did not connect to the internet, and we lived in a world where when you bought something, you actually owned it. The 14th century definition applied to ownership, not the new we can take it away from you afterwards thing. And the reason that we're starting this off in Austin, as Kevin Welch said, is that I think most people, like deep down, be honest, you probably believe there's really no point to showing up. I'm going to email my congressperson. I'm going to email my city council person. They go, yeah, whatever, who cares? And they're going to do what they want to do anyway. But they wanted to spend about $2 million to put AI surveillance cameras in almost every single park in Austin. And they were about to get that through. And then a bunch of people here showed up in front of City Hall. And you didn't curse, you didn't scream, you didn't yell, you didn't throw stuff. You were just polite, kind, and courteous. But you made it obvious that you're not going to go until they do what it is that they should be doing. And you made change. Those cameras are not here. They didn't spend the money on it. And the point is that it doesn't take a lot of people showing up. It takes maybe 0.1% of the people that care about an issue to actually show up and get involved, to do something about it, and to make real change. And that's what we're going to be asking of all of you. So right by there, there's going to be a QR code for a chat server that we have. It's Zulip. It's kind of like Slack or Teams or Discord, but open source, so that when these issues come up, I want you to be sharing them with us, because I can only keep up with so many of the echelons and the nests and the wheelchairs. I want to know when these issues show up in your life so that we can push back against them, so that we can update our bounty program, and more so when opportunities show themselves for us to be able to collectively push back against these laws and reform them. I want to get all of you involved. The same way that happens in front of City Hall here with the flock cameras, where we were able to get rid of them, and the live view cameras, I want to be able to do the same thing with this. Are you with me? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So on that note, let's write some letters to the good Congressman, Mr. Kassar. So we're going to have Maria and Steffi from our team who are going to be coming by to drop off some postcards. And each one of you is just going to take a couple minutes, write a couple sentences, right? A little bit of friction, not just an email. You're going to actually put the personal touch on it and say why it's important to you that we change this law. So let me pull up an example here that we've got. So we've got some basic instructions, right? So address the postcard to your member of Congress. We've got some like labels for you to put those on. They might already be on there. Maybe share a story or a reason as to why you care about being able to own your shit. You care about being able to repair your stuff. You care about being able to continue to play your video games. And then make sure to talk about the need to reform the DMCA. Encourage your member to support the Freedom to Fix Act. So this is our current legislative priority. So while Lewis is doing all of his good work to make sure that consumers are aware of these kind of practices, a big part of my job is heading to DC and finding ways for us to make steps forward. So the Freedom to Fix Act would make it so that at the very least, bypassing a digital lock for the purpose of repair would no longer be a federal crime, right? So that Cody Kosiemba, who developed the no longer evil solution for your Nest thermostat, couldn't become a federal criminal. I think that's just crazy. So ask them to support the Freedom to Fix, and then add your name, add your address so that they know that you are a constituent, because that is really important. So when you're done, we've got a box over here by the merch table that you can drop them off. We'll make sure those get in the mail.